welcome to another Checiegirl art chat. So today I'll be talking about how you can create an art series, and I'll just be covering some tips and techniques that I have used. Now you don't have to use all these techniques, I'm just sharing what's worked for me. You can change these up and make it suit you. So one thing I would say that helps is preparation. So there's quite a few things that could be part of preparation that will just help things kind of fall into place as you create your art series. And at the end of the tips I'll be sharing, I'll just use some art series that I've done as examples. So I would say picking a theme or following prompts really helps. So you can make that theme yourself, that prompt yourself. It all depends. So if you're following a monthly art challenge, there's loads out there like mermaid, unicorn, then you have prompts there for you, and that'll help you create a series of art. Or you can just pick a theme like plants or mushrooms or something, and you can stick to that theme, and then that'll help make multiple art pieces that just kind of go together. And then on top of that, you can then pick a color scheme. Now that could be monochromatic. You can just pick 3 colors that you use, or you don't have to, you don't have to pick colors at all, but sometimes that can help. It's just a bit like giving yourself prompts to even start a piece. Sometimes narrowing down what you use does help the creative process a little bit, so that can also help make your art series a lot more cohesive. And then next, pick your mediums, materials, and how you want your pieces to look, whether it be in portrait or landscape. Now, picking your mediums helps because, say, if you're only using watercolors or acrylics or pens, pencils, markers, then your art pieces will all pretty much look the same because you're using the same materials, so you don't have to worry about whether this watercolor piece and this marker piece will go together. And then materials kind of just cover paper. When I'm doing an art series, I try to create on the same paper just so that the textures that show through are the same, as well as the mediums that I've chosen will also work the same because it's on the same surface. Yeah, so picking your surface, the same surface helps. And then the orientation of your piece. This, I would say, it does look nicer, say, if you have a bunch of portrait pieces together or landscape pieces together. And you can mix that up, if they kind of fit together, that's fine. But I would say picking one orientation, especially if you're looking to make this art series into a zine, that would definitely help. So there's an art series that I want to make into a zine, so I just made sure everything was in portrait form so that I won't have to worry too much if it would look nice printed out. I don't have to worry about that because it's all in portrait form, so that helps. And that's another thing, some of these tips will work more, especially if you are looking to monetize your art series. So yeah, picking the orientation helps a lot. And then once you've kind of picked what colors you want or what theme you're sticking to, the prompts that you're sticking to, it's good then to just kind of do some studies and do some tests and swatches and thumbnails. So doing studies, if you maybe haven't really drawn the thing that you want to, that your theme focuses on a lot, you might want to practice that a little bit, do some sketches, kind of get yourself used to it. Tests is pretty much just test out the materials that you've chosen, test out the colors, do some swatches, especially once you've done the thumbnails. If you kind of sketch out the thumbnails for each prompt, especially if it's an art challenge, I would recommend that. Doing thumbnails beforehand so you don't have to think up of something to do on the day. Then you can just kind of test out the colors to see if they work well next to each other. So when it comes to color theory, we on a basic level, we're taught that blue is cool, red is warm, yellow is warm. But there are cool and warm blues, cool and warm reds, cool and warm yellows. So if, say, you're going with a primary color scheme, it would be nicer to go with, say, a cool primary color scheme or a warm primary color scheme, so that when you're mixing colors, like, it doesn't look too muddy or things don't dull down. So yeah, so especially if you are picking like a limited color palette, it would help to kind of work some color theory into that and kind of test out and do some swatches to see what you would prefer. And as well, if you're doing like a few tests and swatches and thumbnails and stuff, you get a better feel for how your art series will look, so that as you go through creating your pieces, you kind of have something to look back on. And once like you've done that and you've started, I would also recommend keeping like the previous pieces you've made out as an example. I find that helps a lot, especially if I want to make sure that I'm sticking to the right tones or colors, especially when it's a monochromatic piece. I will just keep like the previous piece up so that I know I'm matching the right colors or tones, and that just helps again kind of speed up the process, so you're not then making mistakes unnecessarily. So yeah, keep that up while you're creating. And all these things that I've mentioned, like, again, as I said, you don't have to stick to them. All of this kind of helps you have a foundation, so even if you do change things up slightly as you go through creating your pieces, especially if it's quite a few, I find if it's a small amount, it doesn't affect you too much, but if you're creating like a bigger amount, I find that things can change as you go through. Yeah, you just have that foundation to look back on. And also when you're picking the materials, just kind of make notes in your sketchbook. So I just kind of made notes, what colors, what materials I was using, just in case, like, you know, when you put stuff away, you don't like misplace and stuff like that. So yeah, all this planning does help and gives it a good foundation. Now for like examples, and another thing actually, before I go into examples, sometimes art series are planned from the start, or they're planned after making one piece. So my citrus paintings that I did, it was like some citrus patterns. I did a lemon pattern and I really liked how that turned out, so I decided that I wanted to do other citruses. So I had the lemon pattern as an example, and then I just kind of built on that. So I knew I would have some whole, well, it was lemon slices, so like some whole slices, half slices, different sizes, and then like a wash on the background and some like leaves on the background, but like the background was like monochromatic. So the lemons were yellow, and I used a couple yellows for that, and then the background was blue, so I had a light blue, and then the leaves were a dark blue, and then I added highlights with some gouache on top, and it was pretty simple. So when it came to me making the other citrus patterns, I did lime, oranges, and grapefruits, and it all had the same techniques in it, but different colors. So it all had different colors, but it had the same techniques, the same materials on the same paper, so they still looked like they fit together. And again, I would have like the original up as an example, just so that, you know, I'm not straying too far from the brief that I've given myself. So yeah, some things are planned from the start, some not. That was more of a spur of the moment. I loved how it looked, so I wanted to make more. And then I've done an art challenge. I did my April Showers art challenge, and that was rain themed. And I wanted it to be a story of a little girl having an adventure on a rainy day. And one other thing was I was going to paint in coffee. So before I started, I picked the prompts. The prompt list I made myself, so I picked the prompts to see like how it would work, and then I did the thumbnails so I would have the story out, and I did all of that digitally. Actually, I did all the thumbnails digitally, so it was just easier to splice and cut and add. I just found it easier. You can do traditionally though, it all depends on what you prefer. If I'm doing a large amount of thumbnails for one thing, I'll do it digitally. If I'm just doing one thumbnail for a piece, I'll do it traditionally. So it all depends. And then I experimented with how many tones I could get with the coffee. I also picked what other mediums I wanted. So I wanted to use some color pencil over top, so I checked which color pencil colors I liked the most with the coffee. I also picked what pencil I would be using for sketching. I used a watercolor pencil, so it would just like blend away, and it was brown as well, so it would keep with that monochromatic look. And yeah, oh, and I also, like, on her outfit, she spends like the majority of the story in a raincoat, a rain hat, and with an umbrella and some wellies. So I pick what what tones would be for each piece, so that when I'm then adding the background, as long as she stands out from the background, there's enough contrast, I know it's all good. And I would have a piece up so that I have an example as I'm creating the others. And things did somewhat change as I was going through, but because I stuck with the same paper, the same materials, mediums, and tones, even slight things I changed, the change wasn't big enough for it to like stand out kind of like a sore thumb. So that one actually took a lot more planning, but it helped because I had 30 pieces to make, and that was actually excluding the front cover and back cover, because I want to make that into a zine at some point. So I had quite a bit to make, so all that planning really helped. So like with the citruses, I just swatched out the colors, and that was pretty much it. I already knew what materials I was using from the first piece, but this one I wanted to make sure that I had her character design down. I had the materials, thumbnails ready. I then proceeded to actually do all the sketching pretty much in one go, so I would just have to go in and paint. And doing all the sketching in one go helps as well, because things don't change too much, because I found that like the pieces kind of improved as it went along, but if I had say sketched like each one on the day, it might look slightly different. So having the sketches kind of all next to each other to make sure that kind of sizes look right and stuff did help. So that required a lot more planning, and a lot of reference photos, quite a few like sketching things I haven't sketched before. And yeah, so it all depends on the scale of the project, how much planning that you might feel you need to put in. And then another art series that I'm actually working on, I'm halfway through. It's the Patreon icons, and they're all reptile themed. And basically, when it came to that, I wanted the reptiles for each Patreon icon to kind of get bigger. The bigger the tier, like the more rewards you get on the tier, the bigger I wanted the reptile to be in a way. So the first tier is a gecko, nice and small. The second is a snake. Then the third, a Komodo dragon. Then a fourth, a caiman. And I also pick reptiles because, well, one, I like them, and two, I thought it would be a lot easier to slip one in if I had to slip one in between or like above the caiman tier. Like, if I had to slip one in, there's so many reptiles to choose from that I thought that would be a good thing to pick, especially since I like them so much as well. And then a few things went into that series. So I do the painting of the animals like traditionally, but then the background digitally. And I mostly did the background digitally because I was so worried about ruining the reptile itself. So traditionally, I'm using the same paper, watercolors, and then some gouache for highlights. That's pretty much it. Nice and simple. I swatch and plan out the colors before I start the piece. Especially if it's going to take a few days, I do like to know what colors and mixes that I did, so that I don't have to take too long trying to match the mixed color like on the go. So yeah, swatches. The thumbnails, I just kind of looked up reference photos, like did a few studies and sketches before I figured out like what I wanted the final illustration to look like. Then I would just do a quick thumbnail, kind of practice the colors, make sure they look nice together, and then I'll create my piece. And then digitally, I use the same program, Clip Studio Paint, for that one. And then the backgrounds are like a negative painting, so all the backgrounds will be negative paintings. All of them will in a way be somewhat monochromatic. I just pick a main color, and then I'll use colors from the reptile itself to just kind of add a little bit more depth and stuff to the background. If you're listening on YouTube, I will link 2 videos from when I did the gecko and snake background, and you can stay tuned for, I will be doing a video of me painting the Komodo dragon in a couple weeks, so you can stay tuned for that one, so you can just see the traditional process. And yeah, so I just made sure, what's really useful actually on digital, you can see the different layers that you've used, so I can just make sure I'm using like the same layer settings, the same brushes. Again, I do swatch out the colors digitally for the backgrounds just to make sure it looks good next to the reptile. And yeah, and they're all landscape as well, so it will all like look okay together. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So the level of planning is different for each art series I do. I've done a few in the past, but those are very old, so I'm just using like my most newest ones. So that you can actually check back on them. I will link them in the description, so you can check them out on Instagram. That's where I have the photos up. I'll link them so that you can see what they look like, so you can kind of see what I mean if you want to. So yeah, that's pretty much it. You know, I would say keep it pretty simple, especially if you're going to create a lot. I would say keep it simple, which is why I like recommend to kind of pick a color scheme or pick whether it's going to be monochromatic. I really want to do like a black and white ink series at some point, and maybe like a monochromatic color one, like so a different color per day or something, like November. I think that would be really cool to do. And yeah, if you pick like kind of what style you want and kind of stick to it, it'll then all kind of fall into place and it'll look really cool next to each other. That's why I like to create art series, because it just looks really cool next to each other. And even better when it's in a zine, which is why I want to put a couple of mine in zines. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, you can ask me in the comments below. If you would like a separate video for people who are viewing it on YouTube, for me to be able maybe do a rundown of some of the art series I've done, let me know and I'll see what I can do. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope this helped. I kind of had to wing it quite a bit when I first started to really plan out my pieces, because I didn't used to plan out things, but planning really helps. I find it just takes away a lot of the guessing and stuff like that. So yeah, I hope these helped. And if they did, please do give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. Click that notification bell so you don't miss another video. On my YouTube channel, I have a podcast at the beginning of the month, a monthly vlog at the end of the month, and then some process videos in the middle. So please do click that notification bell. And if any of these tips help you to create an art series, please do share it with me if you want. You can tag me on Instagram, on Facebook. You can send me a message on Instagram or Facebook. Oh, and I'm also on Twitter now, so yeah, you can actually show it to me there as well and tag me there. So yeah, that's all. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys next week for another video. Bye.